If you're planning to fly anytime soon, prepare for turbulence on the ground. A federal government shutdown, now in its fourth week, has pushed thousands of essential aviation workers, air traffic controllers, and Transportation Security Administration officers among them, into the strange position of working full-time without a paycheck. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is warning that the longer this drags on, the greater the travel disruptions will be. Travelers are already feeling the strain. On Thursday alone, more than 4,200 flights were delayed nationwide. At major hubs like Newark Liberty and New York's LaGuardia, the Federal Aviation Administration imposed rare ground stops, ordering planes bound for those airports to stay put at their origins. Average waits at LaGuardia topped an hour, and similar slowdowns have hit Washington, D.C. and Houston. The Federal Aviation Administration says these restrictions could easily be extended if staffing continues to thin. Secretary Duffy has become the public face of the crisis, bluntly stating he can't guarantee flights will depart on time or even depart at all. Before the shutdown, staffing shortages accounted for about 5% of flight delays. Today, it's 53%. While the White House blames political opponents for the impasse, Duffy has aimed his remarks at the controllers themselves, acknowledging their anger, their rent worries, and the side jobs, like driving for Uber, they've taken to cover basics. To grasp why the system is so fragile, look inside the towers. Air traffic control is among the world's most demanding professions. Every instruction, every timing decision carries life or death weight. Even before the shutdown, the Federal Aviation Administration was short roughly 3,500 controllers, forcing many to pull 6-day weeks and mandatory overtime. Now they're doing that work unsure when the next paycheck will come. As Duffy put it, the added financial stress piles way more pressure onto an already high-pressure job, prompting more sick leave and deepening shortages in critical centers. That leads to the question on every passenger's mind: is it still safe to fly? Aviation experts and federal officials answer with an emphatic yes. Safety remains the top priority, and the Department of Transportation will slow or halt traffic whenever necessary to keep it that way. The very delays vexing travelers are evidence of the system working. By spacing out flights or holding them on the ground, the Federal Aviation Administration ensures the controllers on duty aren't stretched beyond safe limits. The real risk is to patience, not safety. Still, the human cost is mounting. Controllers worried about mortgage payments, Transportation Security Administration agents juggling second jobs, and travelers missing connections all share something in common. They're collateral damage in a political standoff far from the tarmac. Until Washington resolves its budget fight, every late flight, every crowded gate, and every unpaid shift is another reminder that the nation's air travel lifeline runs on people. People now pushed to their financial and emotional breaking points. For the moment, pack extra patience, monitor your flight status, and give yourself more time at the airport. The skies remain safe, but the ground game is fragile, and there's no clear departure time for this shutdown. In the waters of the Caribbean and the Pacific, a new and controversial chapter in the war on drugs is unfolding. Since late August 2025, the United States military has been conducting lethal strikes against boats it claims are trafficking narcotics. With at least 37 people killed, this campaign raises a critical question. How does the United States decide which boats to target? Here's what we know. The official justification from the Trump administration is that these strikes are a necessary measure to stop the flow of illegal drugs into the United States. President Donald Trump has pointed to the high number of American deaths from drug overdoses as the legal basis for the action, defining the issue as a national security problem. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has framed this as a non-international armed conflict against drug cartels, comparing it to the war against al-Qaeda. The administration labels the individuals on the targeted boats as narco-terrorists and claims the vessels are operated by designated terrorist organizations, or DTOs. So what is the official process for selecting a target? According to the administration, it is driven by intelligence. Secretary Hegseth has stated that targeted vessels are known by our intelligence to be involved in illicit narcotics smuggling. The strikes have been concentrated on what are described as known narco-trafficking transit routes. The United States also claims the boats are operated by specific groups it has designated as terrorist organizations. Among those named are the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua and the Colombian guerrilla group, the National Liberation Army, also known as the ELN. The campaign began in the Caribbean, reportedly targeting vessels from Venezuela, but in October 2025, it expanded to the eastern Pacific Ocean. This is a significant development, as the Pacific is a primary corridor for cocaine headed to the United States, while the Caribbean is often a route for drugs destined for Europe. This escalation is part of a larger military deployment that began in August 2025, involving warships, thousands of troops, and advanced aircraft like F-35 fighter jets. President Trump has also suggested the campaign could eventually expand to land-based targets without seeking a formal declaration of war from Congress. But while the official story is one of precise intelligence-led strikes, the reality on the water is far murkier, and the human consequences are stark. In September, shortly after the first United States strike, dismembered bodies began washing ashore on the beaches of Trinidad and Tobago. Locals and officials suspect they are the remains of people killed in the United States attacks. The bodies showed signs of being mangled by an explosion. Family members have identified at least 2 Trinidadian nationals among the dead and strongly dispute that they were involved in drug trafficking. Then there is the case of Andres Fernando Tufino Chila, an Ecuadorian man who survived a United States strike on a semi-submersible vessel in the Caribbean. These low-profile boats are notoriously difficult to detect by radar or visually, as most of the vessel sits below the waterline. After his rescue, Tufino Chila was sent back to Ecuador, where authorities released him, stating there was no evidence he had committed a crime. His family says he is simply a fisherman. However, records show he does have a prior United States conviction for drug smuggling from 2020. A Colombian man who survived the same strike was hospitalized with severe injuries. These cases highlight a central criticism of the campaign. The administration has not released any public evidence to prove that the boats it destroyed were carrying drugs or that the people it killed were cartel members. This lack of transparency has fueled a legal and ethical firestorm. Numerous international law experts and human rights groups have questioned the legality of the strikes. The United Nations Special Rapporteur on Counterterrorism and Human Rights, Ben Saul, condemned the operations as illegal killings under international law, stating there is no legal authority to use military force to kill suspected drug traffickers on the high seas. 3 United Nations experts went further, calling the bombings a potential extrajudicial execution and a breach of the United Nations Charter. The United States government's counterargument rests on redefining the situation. By declaring it is in an armed conflict with the cartels, the administration shifts the legal framework from one of law enforcement to the laws of war. For decades, the approach to drug trafficking at sea was led by the United States Coast Guard, which would interdict or intercept suspicious vessels and detain the crew for prosecution in the justice system. This new strategy replaces arrest and trial with lethal force. The scale of the military deployment has also led some experts to question the true objective. They ask whether the primary goal is really about stopping narcotics or if it's a way to apply pressure on the Venezuelan government of Nicolás Maduro. This leaves us with critical, unanswered questions. The precise intelligence and the specific criteria used to authorize each strike remain classified. Without independent verification, it is impossible to know if every boat targeted was indeed involved in drug trafficking, or if every person killed was a narco-terrorist. The official position is that the United States knows exactly who it is targeting. But as long as the evidence behind those decisions remain secret, the questions about the legality, morality, and ultimate goal of this deadly campaign will continue to grow. Today, we're unpacking a real-life caper that feels ripped straight from a heist movie, complete with X-ray poker tables, high-tech glasses, mafia muscle, and NBA star power. The FBI calls it mind-boggling, and after hearing the details, you'll understand why. On October 23, 2025, agents announced more than 30 arrests across 11 states, capping a multi-year probe into two connected schemes. Operation Royal Flush, a mafia-backed network of rigged, high-stakes poker games, and Operation Nothing But Bet, an insider-driven sports betting ring exploiting confidential NBA information. Let's start with the poker plot. According to prosecutors, organizers lured wealthy fish to private Texas Hold'em games by advertising celebrity participants such as Portland Trail Blazers head coach and recent Hall of Famer Chauncey Billups, along with former player and coach Damon Jones. Their presence gave the games an air of legitimacy, but the cards were stacked from the moment guests sat down. The technology sounds like Q Branch for card sharks. Custom tables hid X-ray devices that read card faces as the dealer slid them across the felt. Rigged shuffling machines scanned entire decks, revealing the exact order before a single hand was dealt. Marked cards were visible only through special contact lenses or glasses worn by the conspirators. All of that data was beamed to an off-site operator who texted the results to a player at the table nicknamed the quarterback. With subtle chip taps or hand gestures, the quarterback signaled accomplices precisely when to bet or fold, guaranteeing that the unsuspecting guest would lose and lose big. Prosecutors say victims were cheated out of at least $7 million, with traditional crime families like the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese clans collecting a cut for protection and logistics. Now to the second half of the scandal. Operation Nothing But Bet has already been dubbed insider trading for the NBA. The core allegation, injury and lineup information was sold or shared so gamblers could place profitable prop bets on player performance. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier allegedly tipped friends that he would exit an upcoming game early. After logging just 9 minutes, he did exactly that. More than $200,000 in wagers on his statistical unders paid off. Damon Jones, already implicated in the poker scam, is accused of texting a partner before a Lakers-Bucks matchup, "Get a big bet on Milwaukee tonight, LeBron's out." James indeed sat that game, and bettors who acted on the tip cleaned up. None of the games themselves were fixed. The edge came from knowing who would play and for how long before the public did. In total, 34 people faced charges ranging from wire fraud conspiracy to money laundering. The NBA immediately placed Billups and Rozier on leave, stating it is treating the allegations with utmost seriousness. As for the FBI, officials warn the case is just the start, hinting that more arrests could follow as the investigation widens. Why does this matter beyond the headline shock value? Sports betting boom. Legal wagering has exploded across the United States, and leagues have embraced the revenue. Scandals like this threaten public confidence in the fairness of the product. Technology gap. While casinos invest heavily in security, private high-stakes games often fly under the radar, making them ripe for sophisticated cheating devices. Insider risk. In a data-driven era, even minor leaks, like a trainer tipping a friend about a sore ankle, can move betting markets and invite criminal exploitation. Where does it go from here? The defendants face years in federal court. If convicted, key players could see lengthy prison sentences and massive financial penalties. The NBA, meanwhile, will likely tighten its rules on information handling, player associations, and outside business dealings. For now, the lesson is clear. When high-tech gadgets, organized crime, and insider access collide, even a friendly poker night or a routine regular season game can become a multi-million-dollar con. Stay tuned. This story is still being dealt.